I'm Jack Grady. I'm a magician, comedian, sideshow performer, TikToker, and Instagrammer. In that order. So we're scrolling through TV one night, my mom and her friend and I. We eventually stopped on A&E, and on there was Chris Angel, right? He was walking on water. I thought it was like the coolest thing as a kid, you know what I mean? I wanted to be a magician. I had this notion that magicians were supposed to be like, they were like, I didn't think it was fake. I thought they were like real miracle working people. I thought he was like a prophet of God. So when I got to a magic shop, I was disappointed, but the guy kinda reignited my interest by showing me actual magic tricks and not Chris Angel's fake little TV stuff. When I went to the magic shop, like, he showed me a bunch of tricks. The dude was super nice. His name's Buck. He just passed away. Grand Illusions and Costume on Vine Street. Great guy. He showed me magic for like about an hour, and I only bought one trick from him, and it was this $9 trick called Pen Through Dollar. And I kid you not, I performed it like 80 times to myself. And then I would show kids on my bus on the way to school. I'd show my parents like 50 times. I showed everybody the Pen Through Dollar trick. It wasn't a good trick, not gonna lie, but I treated it like I was doing the best piece of magic imaginable. What were they like? The first show I did was this place. My mom got me the gig. It was called Project Hope. It was basically a home for like sick people, kids, and adults. You get the picture. Before I went on to perform, I had like this fork, and I was about to do a trick with the fork, right? I hadn't gone on stage yet, right? But I dropped the fork I was gonna do my magic trick with on like a wooden table, and the clink like erupted through the room. So before I even performed, everybody was looking at me like I was stupid, you know? Everybody in the room turned their eyes towards me. The first show it wasn't good, you know, it was a little kid doing a magic show. It's never gonna be good. There's no 8-year-olds who are performing good magic shows. But, you know, in hindsight, I could say, like, I'm proud of myself for getting out there and doing it, probably. When I was in middle school, I really wanted to embody this archetype of a serious magician. There's a tradition real popular in magic communities where it's competitions where a bunch of people get together, compete with a very serious act. It's, like, well known that, like, any sort of thing that challenges, like, the normal standard, for example, like comedy magic, is usually not appreciated at those. So I wanted to be one of those competitors. I wanted to get those accolades from people in my field, you know? So I was very buttoned up and straight about everything I was doing. The first time I kind of tried to dive into the comedy angle of magic was an absolute disaster. I used to always do this impression of Chris Angel for my parents. And they said, "Oh, this is so funny. You should do it for the school talent show." So I got this like black, like long black hair with blue like highlights, like all these chain necklaces, a leather vest, and I did an impersonation of Chris Angel for my 8th grade talent show. I was doing magic, but it was as Chris Angel. It was like my first attempt at comedy in front of an audience, and it went awful. Nobody in the audience laughed one bit. They didn't know who Chris Angel was because it was only really popular amongst like people like me who were into magic and, you know, goth teenagers, you know, but not middle schoolers. When I got to high school, I really had like a tight-knit group of friends, you know what I mean? And it was around midway through my freshman year, a couple of them said, "Hey, improv club, the people there are super funny. You need to go." So I check it out. I think, oh, I've done stuff on stage before. I'll be good at this, right? I get up there, perform an improv game. I am awful. Once again, I'm very bad. Nobody's laughing at my jokes. But the thing that was different from beforehand is this was so much more challenging, because beforehand, when I was in 8th grade doing that mediocre impersonation of Chris Angel, I had magic to fall back on. But now when I was up there doing improv, there was nothing I could fall back on. It was purely, I had to come up with the act on the fly. No safety net, just me and the audience. After I bombed on stage doing improv, I probably didn't go back up on stage at that improv club for another month, but I slowly became addicted to it. And over the years, I built that up. I remember about 3 months into doing improv club, I was a 3 out of 10 probably, but the high school talent show came up. I prepared my normal magic act, and I didn't have any comedy planned because I was really too nervous to put myself out there in that regard. But something happened where I went on stage, almost like a fire started, where it was the improv bug kicked on, and the audience was yelling things at me. I was reciting a joke back on the fly, and at the time that was the best performance I'd ever had. And it was a complete new thing at that moment than anything I had ever done before. And that's kind of where I fully embraced the outlandish comedic magician persona. That was like the full starting point. Improv club met every Friday. I went every Friday. I was probably at the best attendance of anybody. It was my favorite part of the week, going to that. So I was getting that repetition of being in front of a live audience and being funny every week for 2 hours, essentially. And that was like, you could not put a price tag on that experience, even though it's some corny high school improv club. It's amazing experience nonetheless. And I slowly started organizing events at the school where it was like variety shows and comedy clubs. We would get shut down for somebody telling too edgy of jokes or whatnot because, they're high schoolers. But yeah, those performances, probably if I saw video footage of them, they wouldn't be that great because, performers, they look at the thing they did last year and it's like awful to them, and they'll think the same thing next year of what they performed yesterday and think the same thing 1 year from now. So it's a natural given. But I perform also at like the school pep rallies. We went to a school of like 3,000 kids, and that was always a nerve-wracking experience. I graduated high school in 2017. When I turned 18, I decided I was ready to go pro. There was one issue with it, is I really kind of wanted to perform in like a comedy club environment, but I was really only getting calls to perform at kids' birthday parties. And that just ate away at me because on one hand, performing for a live audience altogether, whether it's magic, comedy, whatever it was, that was my dream job, is performing. But it being kids' birthday parties made that dream job like a nightmare job. And I was getting good work doing them, but it was just like grueling on the soul. There's 2 gigs I would classify as the worst. One was this like locally famous, very wealthy family, and it was one of those like nitrogen ice cream places. They booked out the whole place, and you could tell like the daughter was like a little bit spoiled, I guess you would say. And she kept wanting to play with my props and then to keep the props because it was her birthday. And then she eventually took my balloon pump. I was trying to get it back from her. There was like a good struggle to do so. And she ended up running off with said balloon pump, locking it in the bathroom with her, and then defecating on it. The other show I had that I would classify as the worst, it was the start of COVID, and it was a kid's birthday, and they wanted to do it like social distance, out in public, open air, where all the kids would be in the car. The kids couldn't hear me talk for the show, so that was one. You know, they were all just on their Nintendo Switches. And on top of that, there was some like dude who drove by. It just started yelling slurs at the kids, like every like racial, ableist, every single possible variety of slur those kids heard. Twice, the guy circled back around to yell at the children. And I wasn't able to recover from that. Like, I was too, like, it threw me off my balance so bad. And that was probably one of the most grueling hours of my life, is finishing that show when in the first 5 minutes I just heard a bunch of children get called the worst possible things on the planet. For sure. I would say I was a good kid's birthday party performer for the most part. And there was a couple shows where I just it was like the 5th show of the day. I was like exhausted, and I went there and I was just like insane. You know, the parents probably thought I was messed up on something, you know? And those are very memorable kid shows. But in terms of regular adult shows, it was during Christmas time, and I got booked to perform for this volunteer fire department's Christmas party. And this is in the middle of nowhere in Ohio, right? And I'm thinking like, oh, this is going to be a weird show. You know, why are these volunteer firefighters booking a magician? I get there, and honestly, they laughed at my jokes like I was the best comedian in the world, and they treated my magic like I was like David Copperfield times a million. Like, they just saw the Statue of Liberty vanish when the rope restored itself after being cut. And they were the sweetest people, very nice, and I'll never forget that small town fire department. After I performed my last kid's birthday show, I spent a good 2 years just mulling over what would I post on TikTok or Instagram, because at the end of the day, that's the main way you make it in the entertainment industry today. And I thought about it for a long time. It took me 2 years to actually buy the phone mount for the tripod, which I kept telling myself, that's the only thing you need to buy it. Eventually I spent the $13 and strapped that mount onto my regular tripod, and I started filming my first videos. None of them really popped off, but a small 30-second clip of me performing at my high school talent show where a trick goes wrong ended up becoming a super massive viral video to me at the time, actually, because it only got a good 5,000 likes, and now that doesn't seem like too crazy. I'm fortunate to be able to say that, but at the time I felt like, oh my god, I'm gonna get recognized in the streets. And I think after I got that momentum after my first win, I started posting more and more content, and really it was like I was in a dark room trying to hit the bullseye on a dartboard that was somewhere in the room. And the only way I was doing it was just trying to throw as many darts as I could. And one out of every 100 tries, I was hitting the bullseye. But every time I hit the bullseye, I had a better idea of where it was located. So over time, the more content I produced, I became more in tune with what was a viral video and how to recreate that success. Because I do truly believe it's not just chance, you know? You can create that energy, that lightning in a bottle. When I started TikTok, the thing I found most success with was a subgenre of magic called geek magic. It's basically sideshow-inspired tricks. So I'd take a piece of popcorn, snort it, pull it out of my eye. It's a perfect example of a early viral Jack Grady video. I that was mainly what got me success at the start. That account ended up getting banned. When I started over again, I kind of went towards what I was more passionate about, and that was comedy, magic, in a very abstract sense. I've always had a very out there sense of humor, so I definitely apply that in my videos. And I just pretty much just tried to come up with the wackiest presentations possible for magic tricks that hasn't been seen before, and that's led to some pretty bizarre out there videos. I could say there's a lot that I'm very proud of with that. I slowly, by accident almost, created a character named the Great Ass Dini, which is a magician who specializes in sleight of ass, where it's pretty much like it's what it says, you know? It's magic with the ass. It all happened by accident, really, with a video where a bottle reappeared in my ass. I did another sleight of ass video, and then I slowly started to craft the character around this idea of a magician who is very confident in himself, over the top and braggadocious, who does sleight of ass, and he takes everything as an attack against himself. The producers reached out to me when the Where to Go video, I'll call it that. When that video popped off, the producers ended up reaching out to me and saying they were interested in having me on their show. And I went through this whole process of Zoom calls after Zoom calls. And in those said Zoom calls, I did some of my stupidest material possible. I thought it would just be a funny joke I could say to friends like, hey, guess what I did for NBC producers? But then I ended up getting a call saying, hey Jack, we want to have you on the show. So I flew out to Los Angeles and I went in front of the judges and did just pure ass magic. Obviously, in my opinion, ass magic isn't going to win America's Got Talent. I would go as far to say as it is not going to go anywhere but the first round on America's Got Talent. I knew that going in. My objective, though, was not to win the show, but was to create like some sort of viral clip that could outlive me and drive people back to my regular socials. And I intentionally did that by being very outlandish and whatnot on stage. But beforehand, I was very straight, stern, and stoic, you know? So I didn't expect this, but like I said, I knew the buzzers were coming. I was like 99% sure, but when the buzzers hit, it was just like this loud roar that echoed throughout the room, and when it happened, it gave me power. I felt like I was on top of the world. Nothing scared me. I felt like David ready to go mess up Goliath, you know? And it was the most invigorating experience of my life. And when Simon Cowell was telling me how much of a loser and how untalented I was, it was just like, it was a high you cannot buy. With Simon, I could really tell, like, because they didn't show it in the episode, but Simon and I had like banter back and forth. And I feel like there was a mutual understanding of we both knew what we were doing. Like Simon knows on TV he needs to play this big bad guy. With Howie Mandel, he was, that was the only one I was kind of starstruck by because my mom and I watched so much Deal or No Deal when I was a kid. And then Heidi Klum and Sofia Vergara both felt like robots. They didn't feel real. Terry Crews, he was just like super charismatic. I feel like he has a switch, like he can turn on and off. And seeing him on in action, interacting with contestants as they're coming up, the audience is super interesting to see because he has such a big personality. People wouldn't expect it, but I take a lot of inspiration from a lot of the classics. So I'm a big fan of like Chaplin and Buster Keaton. And then like more towards the modern era, you got Steve Martin, Bo Burnham, Tim Heidecker, Eric Wertheimer. All of them I'd say like I owe a lot of my style to. I'd say the life cycle of a TikTok and Instagram comedian is about 2 to 3 years if you're lucky. I want to start moving my audience and creating a new audience on YouTube because I feel like that's a more sustainable platform. I already got the built-in audience, so I'm looking to leverage that. I'd also like to do something in traditional media, maybe do a little bit of writing here and there, but I could go without it. I really have not too many aspirations besides live entertainment to take part in traditional media. I really think digital media is fully the future, and I wouldn't want to choose anything else.